Hi everyone, it's Natalie here, and it is Sunday evening, and I just finished the matinee this afternoon of Vagina Monologues, for which I was a drummer and a percussionist, which is not something I've ever done before. It was a little freaky, a little scary, definitely required some courage and bravery because, well, I've done a lot of theater in my life. Well, like 30 years, 30 years or more out of 43. So I guess most of my life. I've never participated as a musician, and so that was really exciting because I'm not a trained drummer at all. Um, I have a lot of intuitive rhythm, and I definitely use rhythm and have for years in my movement teaching practice. But I've never actually been handed drums and been told like, "Hey, here, play some drums." So that was exciting and it was fun. And actually, it was great. It was like a really in-depth meditation practice, and just being attentive and letting my friend Lisa direct us and give us our cues. And yeah, it was great fun. So lots changed in the last week or so, and I haven't updated anyone about how the Tarot Pulse readings are going. And they're actually going incredibly well. And so it was really kind of annoying not to be able to offer a good update. I've worked with a variety of decks. It's been a great way to get to know all of my decks better. I've never really engaged like in a DIY tarot reading practice. Most of my self-reading has been through Oracle decks. I love Oracle decks. I recently found several of my old journals from when I lived in London. I lived there for 10 years. I just realized this is information that I assume about myself and that most of you watching this don't know me. So I could fill in like background and details a little. I lived there from when I was 22 to when I was 32. So, it's a while back. But yeah, I found several of my old like tarot journals and Oracle deck journals, and it was really cool just to go back and look at them and look at how much I really depended on that practice at one point in my life before changing, to depending on other practices. So yeah, and I don't really feel, I don't feel like I need to do it daily. I have tried as much as possible to do a daily tarot pulse reading because I'm really trying to get in, more in depth with that particular reading and reading style. And I'm also just working on more building more skill with the deck and with the cards and with different decks, just getting to know different decks. One thing I will say is that because I commented at one point early on, like, oh, look, I have a court card. Somehow the universe thought that was a really good opportunity. Well, let me back up. I commented, oh, look, I have a court card. Court cards are not my strength. I need to really build strength working with court cards. And so almost all of my readings following that involved like almost exclusively court cards. At one point, there was one reading I had. Maybe it was the one, I guess it would have been tarot reading, or Tarot Pulse number 5. I pulled out my Indigo Alchemist deck to work with again for that one. And I think 3 of 4 were all court cards. And so it was just fun. It was kind of fun. It was like fun and games with court cards. And they were appropriate too. I mean, they really were appropriate. And I would get like one card in the reading that was not a court card that could kind of help me anchor, where, I don't know, other aspects that would be illuminated, through that particular minor, I guess, is where I'm going with that. I don't know if it makes sense, but it was really kind of fun. And it definitely really got me over any kind of fear or trepidation I had around court cards and reminded me a lot about what I knew already. Something I've definitely learned through this process And I feel like I definitely want to continue using this spread. I think it's a very helpful, objective means of just engaging with, like, well, what are the energies I'm surrounded by right this minute and how are they functioning? But also, I feel like it has been a really good way for me to engage, as I say, with each of the decks that I have on one level or another. And it's reiterated to me how, as a reader, and I guess this is where I'm really grateful that I'm not too at this point, like, over encumbered by information, if I can say that, where, I don't have too much of a history in tarot, or too much of a particular attachment to ideas around particular systems or decks. And I say that, and I now realize I'm going to have to back up and correct something. But I promise I'll get back to that in a second. So, yeah. What I'm trying to say, and not particularly well, is that what I'm excited about is the ability to allow the decks, all of these different decks that I've been working with. I'm falling in love with the Mother Peace tarot deck, so much in love with that deck. Here's the Tarot de Maria Celia. This deck wants me so bad. It wants me to work and play with it so badly right now, and it's really funny. As I'm working with these different decks, just letting the decks have their differences, just, and playing within those differences, enjoying the differences, and just letting the decks really speak to me. Really fun, really enjoyable. Something else that I've done along those same lines is I got my little Tree Spirit Oracle here in its little treasure chest box. There was one evening I had a spread and I thought, oh no, I can't completely decode this, or I feel like I need just a little something else. So I went back to my little friends here, shuffled them up, and came up with two cards that wanted to come out at the same time together, which happens a lot with this deck, actually. And it's interesting because the cards are super thick, so it's like, why would they want to stick to each other when they tend not to? Which is interesting. But they threw out some further information that really supported the cards that I had already, and helped me understand a little bit better what the energies were that were at play in that particular reading. So that was a lot of fun. Something I'm really aware of since doing Simon's VR about my first tarot is how much I really, really love. Noah, what are you doing back there? Hi, are you going to come sit down? Can you come lie down? It's my dog. He's kind of old, and he kind of ate to the point that he shouldn't have the other night. So he's a little bit, I'm kind of keeping an eye on him. He's a big dog. He's like a lab shepherd mix. He's a huge big black dog, and he's my baby. So I'm just kind of watching him, and he's hovering underneath my table here, which is also unusual behavior. Anyway, Tarot de Marseille was, and it was the Grimaud Tarot de Marseille was the first deck I ever had and worked with. I'd like to do a video about the way that I used to work with that deck. I think that would be a lot of fun. But I'm feeling drawn back to it, and back to working with Tarots de Marseille a little bit more consciously, carefully, exclusively, or maybe not I don't like anything to be too exclusive, but maybe just a little bit more and with a little bit more thought. I'm excited about working with them. I think they're a lot of fun. They're just so different. They're just so different than Rider-Waite-Smith. And I've realized recently, and I've got a video that I've made, I'm going to be doing a series, but about Rider-Waite-Smith based decks and how much of a difference the particular, the way that different artists, tarot deck artists and creators can spin that, and how much fun it is to allow it and just to read what's there. So instead of going back to just what about a particular card, because that's the way you've always read those cards, finding the freedom to just say, okay, so what's here? Maybe I would always ordinarily read this card this way, but isn't it cool that, in the Mother Peace Tarot deck, the Three of Wands it's really very much about teaching and learning and creating art collaboratively. I mean, just really neat. So I made a little video about that. It's not so little, actually. It's a little bit longer than I would normally want to do, but I had so much fun just playing and talking to the camera and putting it out there. And I'll go through all 4 of the minor suits in a similar fashion. And I want to do that with pip decks as well. Something that I've heard Tom Benjamin say a lot on his channel is how limited he feels the Rider-Waite-Smith system is about the swords and about the suit of swords. And that's been playing in my mind a lot this week while I've been messing with all these different decks and doing this, just working with one spread. And I have to say, I'm beginning to really crack open my own mind about what kinds of views am I holding about that particular suit that are really unhelpful. I don't believe that any one particular suit is more helpful or better or worse than any other. And I actually really enjoy and appreciate how different tarot creators will mess with a particular suit in order to just bring out different details or bring out different qualities in those suits that you wouldn't ordinarily have noticed. I think that's really cool. Or they spin it in a way that you're not, that isn't RWS. I just find that so exciting. And then I began looking at so I pulled out all of my pip decks that I have, and I spread all of those out and started flipping through, each suit one card at a time, just to see how are they different in each deck. And they're very different. They couldn't be more different. And that really, again, started to shift and change my perception of what does that mean? And I began to realize, for me, and I don't know how everyone else feels about this. I'm really curious to know, actually, more and more. How does a particular deck interpret, how does it interpret the meaning of a card for you? And if that card meaning is different in a new deck, how is that for you? Because I may feel one particular way about minors in, as we all do, let's say in RWS. But then when you get to a deck like, the Marigold, which I finally got my review put up. I made that several weeks ago, and I love this deck. I just love it. And my room is dark, and so is the deck. And it's just glossy enough to be kind of difficult. That's a really different Five of Wands. It doesn't fit within any system we know. Hooray! That's exciting. I find that so exciting. What else is in here? Okay, here's a Three of Cups that we don't normally see, right? That's not, oh dear, I'm doing this backwards. Let's see, here we go. There's a Three of Cups we would not normally encounter with, right? So how does that change the way I read that particular Three of Cards, or Three of Cups? It's going to change it. And maybe I need to allow that. So I guess I'm just trying to say that, I'm just I love allowing different decks, and they're, what the heck, look at that as a court card. That's not a court card we're used to dealing with, is it? I mean, yay! I enjoy that. Similarly, I'm so in love with the Mary L. Tarot, and I know I've said that a few times now. I just am. And I know that it's a pretty popular deck as it is anyway. I don't know that I have anything particularly new to offer about it, simply to say, one of the first things I had done with this deck was to, here's my little, is it upside down? Yeah, there we go. Yay, there's our Fool. Something I had done right away with this deck was I'd put it in order, right? It wasn't in order. Well, it was in order. It was in the order that the creator intended it to be in, or to be in. So it means that, we have all of the aces, which have something very specific in common with them, with each of them. I feel like this is backwards for me somehow. No, it's just not. I'm just struggling because this is not easy, and these cards are so stinking glossy. Yeah, look at that. I know it's a lot of nudity. Americans, get over it. We have bodies and they have genitals and boobs and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, it doesn't bother me at all, actually. I guess I lived in Europe for too long, but nudity on cards, get over it. Get over it. Really, we want to be more concerned with violence on television, hey? Opinion alert. Anyway, she put them in the order she wanted to put them in. All right. And that means that she's escaped the problem in so many respects because of the way she's working with numbers and elements within the suits. She's not subject to the same kinds of prejudices that the rest of us have, that, those of us who are most conversant in RWS systems. She's not held to that same constriction, that same constraint. Her view is numerical and it's elemental, and it's more circular. I tend to think of the suits going from like ace all the way to 10. They're linear, right? Her journey it's circular. So 10 and 1 end up back in the same place, but the 10 is more enlightened. So if the ace is coming from, the ace is coming away from the source of divinity, 5, in her deck, in all those suits, is at the point that's the furthest away from where it started out. And then from 6 onward, it's journeying the rest of the way back to that source of divinity, but with greater wisdom. So each of those, they're in order this way because each of these aces is conversing with one another, right? In the same way that they're conversing with the next number up in their suit, if that makes sense. Which is so exciting. I don't know that it will change the way I read any other deck, but it might. It might. I think these things kind of layer in and on themselves in ways that are really helpful. Similarly, I really wish that Amrit Brar had a little white book with her deck, but she doesn't, sadly. And this is getting to be a long video. It's informal, and I'm just having fun talking. Sometimes I get so, geeked about stuff that it's just fun to talk about, what we like. Anyway, some of it, here's our 3 of Swords. That's very familiar language right there. And to some degree, if you have been reading a Tarot de Marseille deck, that too is very familiar. But then when we get to, oh heavens, there's just no light in this room and it sucks. There we go, right? What does that mean? I don't quite get this. Or, oh yes, it was this one. It's a tooth. But then it's a very different, it's just so different. So I haven't gotten to it yet. I really am intending to do more research into specific Punjabi imagery because I want to really work with these cards and they're still kind of eluding me. But because I'm feeling willing to be taken on a journey by each of these decks, I think I'm going to start doing more with that. I'm playing more with the tarot pulse and then reporting back, but using decks that have a totally different system than RWS, which is going to be interesting. That means I may have to, as I'm starting to learn and work with these decks and understand them better, I'm going to have to rely a little bit more, I think, on my, or where I've just got pips, I'm going to have to rely a little bit more on my oracle decks to kind of help illuminate different facets. And I may try a little bit of tarot layering or tarot lasagna, which I enjoy anyway. And a tarot lasagna for me is, where you lay down your spread in one particular deck. Let's say I wanted to work with Wild Unknown, which I really also love. I know that's another pretty big happy deck for a lot of people. And sometimes, and it is very similar to an RWS, it really simplifies and boils stuff down. But then it also has this delightful way of, what's the word I want here? It has this great way of, I don't know, my brain just, it jumped. It went somewhere else. It's been a long day. So with Wild Unknown, let's say I lay out everything in the spread. And as I'm looking at it, I get a little bit sort of confused and like, not really sure where that one's going. Well, if I pull out a traditional RWS, and I did this recently with a friend, maybe I try, I shuffle again and try laying next to each of those positions and, one of Pamela Coleman Smith's cards and just see how that further illuminates the position of each of those cards. Interestingly, I did that recently, again, reading for a friend, and I was really surprised. Some of the same, I think 2 of the same cards came up in the exact same position, even after shuffling. And I just love that. I love that about cartomancy. I think it's just fascinating. I've never stopped being fascinated by cartomancy and the way it functions and works, but I'm getting to a point of feeling okay to be led by the particular deck and to tap into the feeling of, each creator and where they were coming from, where they were going, because doing that seems to be deepening something. I don't know what yet, but it's deepening something, and whatever that is, it's pleasurable. I find the intelligences and talents of other people endlessly fascinating. And the idea that, each artist seems to come from such a completely different place when they create their decks. And really, I could listen to artists talk about their work. And I mean, specifically visual artists. Performing artists can get a little tedious after a while, but visual artists can be so much more invested in humanity and the perspectives about humanity and life and consciousness in ways that are just utterly fascinating to listen to. And somehow reading their deck gives me some insight into who is this extraordinary human being that had this vision and this take on, on this system. And so part of the joy for me is learning and understanding, the creator behind the deck. I guess I feel that way too about novels. When I've thought about novels, it's not unusual for me to fall in love with a novelist, because, in writing that particular novel, a novelist in some part is sharing a little or even a very big piece of their soul with you. And so when you read their work, you're privileged to that little piece of who they are. And it's so beautiful and so precious. And I'm getting that, I guess, now from, I'm just holding the Marigold tarot at the moment. So that's what's here. But that's what I'm getting, is I'm getting that little piece of that person's soul. And it's just so beautiful and so precious and um, I don't know, very heartening. I find it so heartening. I'm really, really feeling a kinship with Mary White, definitely. Like I love reading her novel. If this is a novel, I love reading her novel. I definitely feel that about, Simon Lilly, who created the Tree Seer Oracle deck, or the Tree Spirit Oracle deck. But I also feel simultaneously a deeper connection with tree spirits. And yeah, I think there's a lot to be said there. I expect that once it's summertime, there's going to be a lot to be said there. I might have to start taking my partner's GoPro and like strapping it, putting it on a chest strap to take it out on like little like flower hunting excursions and stuff, because I do a lot of that. I can get really obsessed with flowers and flower excursions in the summer. Fun times. Fun times, everybody. Fun times. So I just wanted to make a little, not so little video and just share some of those insights. I'm just having a good time. It's just fun stuff, and it's such a great community. I'm enjoying watching people's videos. I listen to them in the car. I take them with me wherever I go, just kind of picking up a little here, a little there, and then when I have a chance, I'll go back and go back through my watch list and start making comments, because there's just so much beauty in this community. It's a really beautiful community. So if you got this far in my video, as always, thank you for watching. I'm very grateful that you got this far, because I'm a real talker. But it's fun and I'm having a good time, so I can't make too many excuses about it. All right, everyone, take care. Have a beautiful week.